Do you know what is missing in my knight collection? Another knight. It's better, no? But this time I want to paint a knight that I built in 2020. In the dark age of the lockdown. Please welcome to the desk the Imperial Knight Castellan. Thanks to past me, I already was a big fan of sub-assembly before the lockdown for big minis like Imperial Knights. Honestly, if it was completely built, I would have sold it and bought a new one. Just like for every knight, I started with the metal skeleton. I'm currently trying the 3 paint sets from Squidmar, so I try to use a maximum of their paints for the future video. I completely love the metals in this set. It's a really dark and cold metal, it's perfect for this kind of miniature. With this, you get a really good contrast between the armor, which is saturated, and the skeleton. I love it! Then I highlighted the skeleton with the brightest metal, which is really reflective and bright. I really love how the metal looks. The skeleton with the airbrush is done. It's time to paint every piece of the armor. I use the same blue as the other knight of my collection. It would be horrible to have a different Terrier Knight blue in the middle of the others. Once all the armor pieces are done, I highlighted them with a lighter blue. That's what I love with this kind of big minis. With just 2 colors and an airbrush, you can make them look really good. Now that the blue is done, it's time to paint the other colors of the armor. To be able to paint them with the airbrush without overflowing on the blue, I put masking tape on the blue. Smart! I love masking tape, it's a really good innovation. The first time I saw this technique was on the Bipainted channel, recently renamed Wargaming Zone, recently 1 year ago. I learned a lot with his tutorial at the beginning of my airbrush journey, and masking tape completely blew my mind. Once the masking tape is ready, I started painting the other colors following the house terrain hierarchy. Half of the leg armors are red, like the shoulders. The right shoulder is not supposed to be blue, like I did. I completely forgot it is supposed to be beige. But there's also one thing to do on this beige part of the armor. It's the area where there is his hierarchy identification. So in theory, each right shoulder pads of each knight should be different. As I already have 5 of them painted, I was a little bit lost on what to do. After looking at the box art, I decided to do it the heavy metal way. Cut the hierarchy in half. For the first half, I will do a checker pattern. For the other half, I will put decals to create something cool in the end. The big airbrush step for this mini is complete. Now it's time to move on to the biggest brush task on the mini, the gold. Yoo-hoo! I tried some new paints on this project, the new Vallejo paint. And I have to say that the metallic I have are really good. I love how the gold looks. It's a really rich gold, I love it. The only issue is that it's a little bit thin, so I have to do 2 thin coats on all the gold trim on this night, which is long. But I do think that it's worth it. The gold is finally base coated. It's time to move on to the bronze. Yoo-hoo! For me, it's really the hardest part of every Imperial Knight model. It's not hard technically, but it's huge and you cannot make any mistake, because if you do, you overflow on an airbrushed part of this mini and it's really annoying to redo these parts. And after the bronze, to conclude the annoying metallic base coats, I base the silver parts. Now it's time to do the matte base coat and to paint every detail on the mini. I started with the blue for the big guns. When you apply matte color on a metallic color, if you thin your paint a little bit, it always looks weird. But don't worry, a second thin coat and it will be perfect matte base coat. I also did a base coat of black on secondary weapons like the melter guns. To give more colors on the guns, I added some bronze on certain parts. I checked the official box art to do that, but I also painted what I think looks cool. Now it's time for the red. I love red. I painted in red a tons of cables. I like cables in red. It gives a good contrast with the Mini. I also made the base coat of plasma on the plasma gun and the red on the missile pod. Once done, I highlighted all the metallics with a really bright metallic paint. Still in the Vallejo range, I love it. It's so bright and reflective, it's an amazing paint in my opinion. I was wondering if I should directly highlight the gold, but as this knight should be in my Terran House army, I prefer to do what I did on the other knights. So I shaded all the gold trim with flesh wash from 2 thin coats, which is a good equivalent to the Reclan flesh shade. I also shaded the bronze with black. Then, with all my airbrush skills, I highlighted the blue carefully. After painting some little details, I painted the plasma effect on the big gun. For that, I simply highlighted the tubes with blue, and then brighter blue, and then blue mixed with white, and finally pure white on some areas. The most important for this is to always highlight the tube on a smaller area than the previous highlight. There is only one paint step left to do, which is the gold. But to do it properly, I need to finish building the model first. To keep movement for my knight, I always glue a bit of sprue here to lock the upper body on the legs. With this technique, I can have my knight in one piece but free to move the upper body. Obviously, I forgot to film the rest of the build. Boo! I'm sorry, but it's just standard building. You can see how I did on my previous video of painting an Imperial Knight Battle Force, just right here. Once entirely built, I moved onto the gold and highlighted it with a mix of the original gold base coat and the bright silver I used for the metals. I only highlighted what we can see from the zenith to give a cool effect to the knight. The Imperial Knight paint job is done. It's time to make a base for him. I followed my base color scheme of my Terran House army, which is a devastated city. I used some old pieces of the old Warhammer 40k buildings. Once all the parts are glued, I apply my favorite texture on it, which is AK Muddy Ground Diorama. While the texture dries, I put all the decals on the knight. It's a stressful step because you can damage the decals in the process. But it's a step that I really enjoy. Decals make minis look so good in just a few seconds. And for knight miniature, it's even more important as the look is really enhanced by the decals. After applying every decals, I carefully applied microsol on the decals that are not flat enough. It's a chemical solution that makes the decals completely flat. It could take several coats, so be patient. But it's completely worth it. Then it was time for the base. I painted it following the color scheme of my army, with marble pieces for the ruins and greyish ground for the texture. I also made some little details in gold. Once done, I glued the knight on the base and applied pigments to make the battleground effect more realistic. To secure the decals, the pigments and protect the mini from my dirty fingers in-game, I varnished it and voila! The knight is done! It's time for a big reveal! And here is my entire House Terrain Knight collection. The first Terrain one was this one, and the base color doesn't fit, because I did it to support my Grey Knight army in a tournament in 2016. It's also the only knight completely painted without an airbrush. If you want to see the painting of this knight and these little boys here, watch this video. Thanks for watching, please subscribe, bye!